Jananam sukadam maranam karunam milanam maduram smaranam karunam kalavashadiha sakalam karunam samayadipate akilam karunam. Good evening, everyone.
Sadhguru, it's a great opportunity and honor for me to interact with you. In many ways, there can't be a greater contrast between two individuals.
At least in appearance we are.
You from a very urbane and very sophisticated background. I grew up in a village in Telugu medium. And you are in the spiritual realm. And I'm anything but spiritual, I'm in the completely temporal realm. I built all my life around the principles of rationality and logic. In some ways, this is a collision of the two frames of reference. And I greatly look forward to learning a great deal from you and getting a lot of insights as to how to manage this synthesis. In some ways, you are the thesis and the antithesis. So hopefully a synthesis will emerge today, Sadhguru. Sadhguru, with your permission, I would like to broadly explore 3 or 4 themes. The first is about what is right and what is wrong, and what is good and what is bad, and what is morality, what are taboos, and what is the role of values and the role of institutions. That's one broad subset of themes. The second is, as the blurb said, politics and corruption. You cannot escape those two things, unfortunately, in India today. Therefore, politics and corruption, without going into party politics, but the broader issue of politics. The third is our nation and our society. And the fourth is this collision of spiritual and the temporal worlds.
Oh, you better be ready for a whole night then.
If I may start off with the first line of inquiry. So when you are a person of religion, you were given certain edicts, what is good, what is bad, the 10 commandments, the do's and the don'ts. But in ordinary life, for most people, particularly in the public domain, to distinguish between good and bad seems to be increasingly difficult. I've always held that there are two realms, the individual gain, and the second is the public good. If one is clashing with the other, if my personal gain is clashing with the public good, then that is something bad. If both are in harmony, then that is something good. That seems to me to be a workable definition of what is good and bad for ordinary interaction between the citizen or individual and the community and the society. What are your thoughts on that?
See, once you start a debate as to what is good and what is bad, actually in reality, this debate can go on forever without coming to a conclusion. Obviously, you have debated this within yourself and around yourself for many years, and still there's no conclusion. And believe me, people have been debating this for thousands of years, and still there is no conclusion. Why this is so is, generally, this starts from within the family, that is, people who have the authority within the family. If you really carefully look at it, essentially it boils down to this: what I do is good, what you do is bad. That extends to the society, to politics, to various things. Whoever is in a position of power, who is in a position of dominance, they may not spell it out so crudely, but in so many ways they're telling you, what I do is right, what you do is wrong. So ultimately it becomes about whoever is in a state of advantage is right, whoever is in a state of disadvantage is wrong. Well, that principle is the basis of all exploitation and all the ugliness that you see on the planet. So instead of starting a debate on what is good and what is bad, I think what we need is what is appropriate and what is inappropriate to our times, to our society, to our existence here, to our level of economics. What is right and what is appropriate and what is inappropriate. Now, if… I'm just saying for example, we are a rich nation because if you have 29 rupees per day, you are rich in this country. We are one rich nation, another rich nation is United States. So between these two, if you compare, what may be right there is not right here, because the conditions are not same, people's lives are not same, culture is not same, people's emotions are not same, people's wants, likes and dislikes are not same. So what is right there may be completely wrong here. What is right here may be completely wrong there. So within the nation, when we say a nation, we believe we are all Indians, but here everybody has an opinion of his own. It will be fanciful to think there is one person here who doesn't have an opinion of his own, who goes by Indian constitution. There's not one single person like that here. Everybody has their own opinion, their own twist of what is right and wrong, isn't it? 1.2 billion people, every one of them has their own opinions. Two people cannot agree as to what's right and wrong. So instead of looking at right and wrong, if we start looking at what is appropriate, okay, these are our conditions, this is our life, what is the most appropriate thing to do right now? Tomorrow if our conditions change, the appropriateness changes, then there will be no clashes. Constantly the clash between the previous generation and this generation, between one human being and the other human being is, your ideas of right and his ideas of right are so different. Parents and children are fighting, administration and people are fighting, management and union is fighting, simply because your ideas of good and bad are very different and it's always different. Within the family, between the husband and the wife, basic unit of the family, their ideas of right and wrong are very different. So once you enter that space, you are entering into an endless controversy, no possibility of a solution. But if you look at appropriateness of action, then we can arrive at what is the appropriate thing to do in our society, for our conditions, for our limitations.
Now, Sadhguru, I hear you saying that A, the cultural ambience in which you live, that matters about the appropriateness, and B, it changes from time to time, generation to generation. In other words, people sometimes confuse taboos with morals, the changing fashions and attitudes with morals. But unless we have some kind of a yardstick which is measurable and somewhat universal in guiding our behavior and dealing with the society at large, or perhaps even in nature, how are we going to give people a yardstick other than religious edicts? That is the challenge for many agnostics, because we can't go by the 10 Commandments merely because God gave us those. We can't go by the Gita because Lord Vishnu told us so. We need a temporal yardstick. We need an institutional mechanism to be able to measure and say, this is right, this is wrong, a talisman.
We need to understand this. Right now, we are trying to fix human life with morality. It's never worked. Even the 10 Commandments that you are referring to repeatedly has never worked. It's only carved on the stone. Nobody has ever really stuck to it, believe me. People who said, "Thou shalt not kill," are the ones who are killing constantly. It is just that it will happen in a different garb, in a different way. So trying to fix the human societies with morality will only bring more and more deception. And above all, it kills life in so many different ways. Why are we trying to fix life with morality? Essentially because we have never bothered to stir up humanity. There is something called as humanity within us. If you stir up this dimension which we call as humanity, when somebody is feeling very human, he doesn't need morality, he will be fine the way he is. But instead of being a human being, he becomes a Christian or a Hindu or a Muslim or an Indian or a Pakistani or this or that or so many things, caste, creed and many things. So instead of a human identity, he takes on a different identity. Now you can do most horrible things with great pride. Yes, you can kill thousands, not one, you can kill thousands and feel really good about it. I did it. Because I did it for the nation, I did it for my religion, I did it for my caste, creed, whatever else. So your identity is shifting from your fundamental identity to make-believe identities. It may serve limited purpose. We are a nation because we have to politically manage ourselves. It is not some divine dictum that this is a nation like this. We are the people who drew the lines, isn't it? Now we believe that's how it is. For certain functional realities, we draw lines, but that is not the reality. So a human being should essentially be identified as a human being, not by his religion, not by his race, not by his caste, creed, nationality, no. If he sits here as a human being, you will see he does not need morality, he will be fine. And that's what is needed in the society, to stir up humanity, not morality.
That's a terrific message, Sadhguru. Essentially what you're advocating is that go beyond the individual, go beyond the sect and the creed and embrace humanity itself, and you will not go wrong in your actions.
I'm not saying embrace humanity, I'm saying you are human, isn't it? I don't have to teach you to be human, you are human. The problem is somebody else has taught you that you are something else. Somebody else has told you you're Indian, somebody else has told you you're Hindu, somebody else has told you you're Muslim. But the reality is you're human. If you go little further, you're just a piece of life, isn't it? If you sit here as a piece of life, do you have any problem with any piece of life in the existence? If you sit here and throb as a piece of life, which is what's happening, it doesn't matter, we are talking something, whatever we may be talking, essentially, we are sitting here as throbbing as a piece of life. Rest is all made up by us, isn't it? This is the reality of existence. If you sit here as a piece of life, you instantly know that there is nothing in the existence with which you are not connected. But if you sit here as an Indian, if the person sitting next to you is P, there's problem. If you sit here as a Hindu, if the next person is M, problem. Like this it goes on, it doesn't stop there. It goes into further and further divisions and divisions and divisions. So, essential dimension of spiritual process is that you disidentify yourself with all the false identities you have taken on, and to learn to sit here just as a piece of life. If you sit here as a piece of life and throb as a piece of life, breathe as a piece of life. You know, this happened a few years ago because you mentioned this project Green, hence I'm bringing this on. When I said that we need to plant 114 million trees to get Tamil Nadu to 33% green cover, people said, Sadhguru, do you know what is 114 million? Is it possible for any human being to plant this many? See, I told them, the population of Tamil Nadu is 62 million people. If all of us plant one tree, take care of it for 2 years and plant for one more tree, what is the number? You got it. So it's not difficult, even a beggar is capable of planting one tree, isn't it? Now the problem is that they must feel for it. How do you do it? I told them, you don't worry. I went out village to village, called farmers' associations together. I told them one simple thing, just sit here. Where do you want to sit? In the sun or under the tree? Choose. You know what's the choice. Everybody sits under the tree. Now I said, see, are you breathing? Yes. I want you to understand what you exhale, the tree is inhaling. What the tree is exhaling, you are inhaling. Just sit here and feel it, it's happening. One half of your lungs is hanging out there. Your breathing equipment is not completely here, only one half is here, one half is hanging out there. Just see the tree and breathe. It just caught like a fire. We've not planted 114 million trees, but 17 million trees. And Tamil Nadu's green cover has officially gone up by 7.2%. And we didn't give up our lives to do this. This is just one of the small things we do. This is just one aspect of our activity. We didn't give up our life to do this. Just that, if everybody gets involved, it's such a small job, isn't it? Why are they not getting involved? Because they're identified with something. If they sat here as a piece of life, nobody had to tell them. They would have anyway done it by themselves. So, it is because of these wrong identifications that we are doing all these crazy things, and you're trying to fix it with morality. It's not going to work. It's not worked for these thousands of years, isn't it? So the best thing is, first step is to stir up your humanity. If that is done, the next thing is to see that you're just a piece of life. Even being human is your idea. Well, the theory of evolution is telling you, just some time ago you were a monkey. I'm sorry, not me, Charles Darwin. Just some time ago you were a monkey, and the difference between you and a chimpanzee, your DNA is only 1.23% different from that of a chimpanzee. Not a big difference, isn't it? After all, they're your relatives still. Many of your relatives look like that, isn't it? When you don't like them. So, experiencing life as life is more important than we making up something which is not true. This is what has happened to human society. This is what has happened to human psyche, that they are not sitting here as life. They're sitting here as so many things which they are not. They realize this only when they die.
Sadhguru, as a parochial aside, I wish Isha Foundation is in Andhra Pradesh, so that we would have got the benefit of the tree plantation.
I'm in Andhra Pradesh right now.
I hope these seeds will truly spread. Sadhguru, that brings me to the question of ensuring that the moral conduct is actually upheld. While spiritual gurus, religion itself, and societal norms have a value, they don't seem to be sufficient. Only in India, whenever you talk about corruption or some other misconduct in public life or in private life, we talk of morality and values instead of talking about institutions.
As far as I'm concerned, there's no corruption in India. Where is corruption in India? There is only banditry. I don't see any corruption. Because corruption means you come to me and you want a favor to be done, I'm willing to do it, but you know, under the table I want 2 rupees from you. This is corruption.
What's happening
I
is
break
plunder.
your head and I take everything that you have, this is not corruption.
It's just plunder. So when we talk of all these evils in the public domain, oftentimes we talk of values in this country rather than enforcing a certain code of conduct. That's something that troubles people like me, because if indeed values without any external compulsion can be internalized and they can guide the behavior of every single human being, they probably guide the behavior of a large majority of people, because if there is peace in this country, if all of us are going to go back homes after this session with a reasonable degree of certainty that there will not be any victims of violence, it's because the society has these norms and values. But there's always deviant behavior in society. Unless the laws of the land, unless the enforcement mechanism are strong enough to enforce a certain code of conduct and prove that there is punishment for bad behavior and reward for good behavior, I'm afraid values in themselves will not for long sustain us.
Not at all.
Now, this is something that we need to get from you, because overemphasis on values at the cost of institutions sometimes may actually become an excuse for doing nothing to build institutions. It's a bit like this water in the glass. The water is obviously the one that is giving life. Without that, we can't quench the thirst. But without the glass, without the container, the water is not usable. While water is what gives life, the container, the institutions are what make the life, the value usable. So my appeal to you is, Give us your views, and if you broadly think that this is the right approach, what institutional mechanisms we need to build, in your estimate, to build higher levels of public integrity, higher levels of civic conduct?
See, one important thing that India needs to do is to simplify the laws in a way that everybody understands it. Right now, it's so complex and so ambiguous, nobody really knows what it is. And because there is so much ambiguity, it creates so much gray areas, which breeds corruption endlessly. If there is no ambiguity, somebody just couldn't come and ask money out of me to do some work, isn't it? There is so much ambiguity. These laws were largely created by the English because they wanted ambiguity so that they could interpret it whichever way they want. If they want to pick you up tomorrow morning, they want to pick you up and there's a good enough reason. We have still kept the same laws, and even today it is true, the law can just come and pick you or me up now, and I don't know what I have done, but he can pick you up and they can produce something, number, whatever, criminal procedure code, some damn number that I'm not aware of, and they can say, you did this. Because it's such an ambiguous law, this is good to control foreign nations if you occupy them, not for our nation to move ahead. Too much ambiguity. To give you an example, I'm sure there are people involved in various kinds of real estate is one of the big activities happening. If you want to… I don't know how long it takes in Andhra Pradesh, normally in Tamil Nadu it takes 12 to 14 months to get an approval for a building. Many things would have changed in 14 months' time. You may be no more interested to build in 14 months' time. You go through some 16 departments and you have to put people to follow this file every day, where it is going. And of course, there is a fixed fee, beyond the fee. All that you do, still 14 months. In the end, you have spent so much, you spend so much time, with vengeance you break the law. Understand? Just with vengeance, because you spent so much money. If you said 10,000 square feet, I want to build 15,000 square feet because anyway I paid you, what is the big deal? It comes to that. So all laws are flouted without any problem. In United States, we are building, we are building a big center. Here if you go, they have a code book, building code. Your architect anyway has to be certified. He must know the codes. Apart from that, a code book is given to you about 250 pages. You better read it. You build whatever you want, no department, no sanction. You build whatever you want. But before occupation, he will come for an inspection. If it's by the code, it's fine. If it's not by the code, your building goes down and you go in. Simple. So now the amount of government machinery that is needed just to sanction a building is cut down to just a few people rather than these various departments. If I'm a citizen of this country, why do you think I'm naturally a criminal? Why are you sanctioning what I should do, what I should not do? Just tell me this is the way to build in this country, I will build that way. If I don't, bring it down. I'm just saying as one example. You can see million examples like this in the country where laws are unnecessarily complicated and ambiguous, which is essentially breeding ground for corruption.
Sadhguru, the saying in Andhra Pradesh is, in Tamil Nadu you give you a bribe and your work gets done.
Don't tell me.
In Andhra Pradesh you give you a bribe and still you are harassed. So there are still grades and grades in this corruption phenomena in this country. Sadhguru, before we go into the issue of politics and corruption, because all of us love to hate politicians.
I wouldn't allow that because it's become a fashion and a fad and almost a compulsion that wherever you go, people are talking politics. How horrible the politicians are, whether they know about it or they don't know about it. From a tea shop to an office and wherever else, it's happening. If you are a responsible citizen, what democracy means is, it is the people's government. These politicians did not land from the sky, they're one among you who stood up to do something. Now, for whatever reasons they've become the way they've become, you do not know how many have become like that, how many not. We are generalizing because we have a certain pleasure in painting everything very bleak and black. If your nation is important for you, and if you believe that you have handed over your nation to a bunch of crooks and you are sitting here and it's entertainment for you, I think it is you who needs to be punished, not the corrupt. Because democracy cannot be a spectator sport, it is a participatory process. If I say participatory, most people's understanding of this is, if I come out once in 5 years and vote, my responsibility is over. No, democracy has various instruments through which you can participate on a daily basis in the governance of your country, your state, your city and your street. There are various mechanisms. Oh, I don't know. Why you don't know? Because you've not cared, isn't it? Why you have not educated yourself to know is you have not cared, because the idea of the nation has not gone deep enough in this country. Still, our identifications with our religions, our caste, our creed, our family is more predominant than the identity of the nation. This is the reason why these things are happening. I don't know if I can share this, but let me try it out because this happened in Andhra Pradesh. I was traveling with a lady who comes from a political family in Andhra Pradesh. I saw the way things were going on in the family and stuff, and I just joked, if you are given a choice, probably your father will break the country into 4 pieces and give it to the 4 children that he has. I was amazed and shocked, I didn't know I don't know how to articulate this expression. The person was actually genuinely said, what is wrong with that? Our father loves us.
It's my birthright.
Yes. Now, what we need to understand is, we as a nation are moving from a feudalistic existence to a democratic existence. The system has changed, but our mind has not changed. We are still feudalistic. People are complaining, not everybody. A lot of people are complaining. Their complaint is only that we didn't get the chance to be corrupt. We are at the receiving end or the giving end. They're not complaining that there is corruption. Really, I'm telling you. I have been interacting with people on all levels and I know they're not really complaining about corruption. It is just that we have to pay and they are taking. I would like to be on the other side. If you want to test it out, tomorrow morning remove all the police from Hyderabad city, just see how many people actually stop at the red light if there's no policeman. My average is 90% won't stop. Some fools like me will stop. I'm driving in Coimbatore or wherever, red light, I stop. Everybody is going zook zook next to me and they're looking at me, who's this fool who's blocking the traffic? You know, they're looking at me, what's wrong with you? No police. So, essentially our integrity has gone down. It is not even a question of integrity, it is just that within ourselves we are still very feudalistic, but we are trying to be democratic. So democracy in India is still in an evolutionary state, needs lot more evolution. And nobody has done to educate people as to what is democracy. Not enough work has been done. It has not been brought into our education systems. Social organizations, the government itself should have taken it up in a big way to educate people why democracy. See, the moment we vote for our religion or caste or creed or even family, if you vote, there is no democracy anymore. There is only feudalism, isn't it? Democracy will be a functional democracy Only when you go and vote and you don't know who your wife voted for, who your husband voted for, and you don't want to know, only if you have this kind of integrity, democracy will work. You tell your whole family, all of you vote for this person, this is not democracy, it's finished. I'm saying that has not been understood at all.
We had a set of by-elections in Andhra Pradesh recently, in 18 assembly constituencies and 1 Lok Sabha constituency. It is widely believed that something like 400 to 500 crore rupees was spent at the very least.
It's not spent, it's invested.
Sadhguru, you made some extremely important comments about democratic evolution. While we all have aspirations to expect that we'll suddenly become a great liberal democracy overnight without working hard at it, is somewhat unrealistic, is the gist of what you're saying. And I'm grateful for those comments because that appreciation is very critical, particularly for those of us sitting here, the middle classes who are so impatient about what's happening in the country. In that context, Sadhguru, somebody said, the best way of getting justice is rendering justice to your adversary, to your opponent. The quickest way of getting justice, because he will then understand your point of view and he will then come to an agreement which is just to both of you. Oftentimes, I think, in dealing with public affairs in this country, we have forgotten that there is this acrimony, this bitterness, not only among political parties, but also between the media and the political parties, between the public and the political parties and the governments. A lot of anger and a lot of polarization. One thing I would like you to advise us, Sadhguru. If you ask a politician, look, why are you doing what you're doing? You're a good man, you're an ethical man. He has many alibis. He'll tell you 100 reasons why he genuinely had to do what he did in order to survive in office. In other words, honest and good conduct is not conducive to survival in political office increasingly in the country. And B, in any country, even in the United States or Britain or Germany or Japan, there's always a clash between what the voters want in the short term and what the nation needs in the long term. And the politician has the difficult task of bridging these two. And he cannot survive without the voters' goodwill, and the nation cannot survive without the politician's wisdom. How do you bridge this gap, Sadhguru?
They like the question. They like the question, they may not like the answer. First thing is, I would like you and everybody else to drop the word justice from their language, because there's no such thing as justice on the planet. What is justice for you will be injustice for somebody. Usually the word justice is used to enforce revenge on someone, whether it's legal revenge or illegal revenge. But whatever, if somebody does a killing, he thinks he's got what he deserved. Somebody thinks so, isn't it? That's why they do it. So let's not go by justice. Let us simplify the laws and enforce the law. Right now, nobody has any right to think about justice. We must become a law-abiding society first. After that, the luxury of justice will come. Sometimes when the law itself is cruel, we can break the law and deliver justice. Right now, the way we are in this country, there is no luxury like that. Here, law must be enforced first. Simply enforce the law. It may be unjust, but enforce it. Because without a semblance of order, there will be no luxury of justice in any society. Right now, we have no order. Where is the question of justice? Revenge will be labeled as justice. Now, how to bring this about in a society? As I said, one most important thing is to simplify the laws. And if you want to live in this country, everybody must understand the basic laws, what the laws are. Most of the people existing in this country do not know what the basic laws are. Every time you ask, they will throw their hands up. They think somebody should tell them. No, we must make it a law that if you want to live in this country, at least this many basic laws you must know. If you want to drive on the street, you must know what are the laws of the street, isn't it? Similarly, if you want to live in this country, you must know this, this and this. Not that you heard from your neighbor, not like that. Proper education, everybody knows that these are the laws. If you break it, this is the punishment. Everybody should know, isn't it? And then enforce it. It's not as simple, enforcing. Making the law itself is complex, enforcement is a super complex thing, because here comes justice in justice. So for a certain period of time, we must be willing to surrender justice and just stick to law. People who are enforcing law sometimes will enforce it in unjust ways. You must endure that. If you don't endure that, you will have a disorderly society, a lawless society. Then revenge will be the way, but we will call it justice. We will go about labeling it as justice, taking revenge on each other. Many things are happening. People are shooting each other and they think they're rendering justice because the law is not sensible. So, in making this happen, in creating an orderly society, not a just society, I want you to understand this because this is a serious sacrifice that we must be willing to make if we want to move ahead. This is a very serious sacrifice that I don't ask for justice, enforce the law on me. Whatever the law, I'll go by it. It may not be just, but I'll go by the law right now. If the law is very unjust, we can look at restructuring the law, but beyond the law, no justice. Nobody has the discretion to deliver justice. This has to be established. This one thing we have not done yet. See, the problem with us is, if you travel 100 kilometers in India, people look different, they dress differently, they speak differently, different languages, our food is different, everything is different. But still, for over 10,000 years, the whole world has referred to us as one nation. Though we were over 200 political entities at some time, still, we've been doing trade with Syria, Jerusalem, Damascus, Jerusalem, Greece, all these places for over 8,000, 10,000 years. Even at those times, they referred to this country as Hindustan, though there were 200 entities. It was referred to as one nation, as Bharatvarsh or Hindustan or whatever the name. Because somewhere people saw this as one nation, though it was ruled by many kings. Because there was one ethos, which is something that the politicians and administrators and the people have never paid attention to. The only thing which keeps us as one nation is a certain fundamental spiritual ethos, which is not on the surface, but which is always there. In the sense, people recognize this as one nation from outside because they all believed in something. This nation has never been a nation of believers. We have been a nation of seekers because spiritual process has been the main thing. Here people are not believing in God, they're seeking mukti or liberation or freedom. There is a difference between a seeker and a believer. A believer means he's made a conclusion. A seeker means he's wide open. He's realized that he does not know, that's why he's seeking. This one quality set us apart from the rest of the world, so outside world recognized as one nation, though there were so many political entities. We need to understand even today, it is only this spiritual thread which is keeping this as one nation. Right now it's being systematically hacked at. If you break this one thing, after 25, 30 years, you will wonder, why are we one nation? And we will break. If you do not strengthen the fundamental spiritual ethos of this nation, if you hack it down with beliefs and other kinds of identities, you will see, you will break up into various nations, you will not be one nation.
Sadhguru, I hear you clearly and I entirely agree with you that unless unity and order are kept even above liberty, if necessary, if there is a clash, we are in danger. I totally concur with you as a true democrat and libertarian. But whether spiritualism could be the glue to keep the country united when there are so many meanings of spiritualism. In the name of spiritualism, if a certain religious persuasion or a certain philosophical tradition is propagated, in a very pluralist country like India, the dangers to disunity are even greater. I'm not even talking of morality issue. I'm not even talking of rights issue. The dangers to disunity are far greater, some people could argue, if you overemphasize a certain spiritual tradition, if the emphasis is on the humanist tradition that you have always been advocating, beyond a certain religion or beyond a certain philosophical tradition, then that will be perfectly all right. But unfortunately in this country, this mix of religion and politics has done us a great disservice. So how do you distinguish between religiosity in politics and spiritualism, which is true and all-encompassing?
Let us first of all make a distinction between what is a religion and what is spiritual process. A religion arises because they have a set of beliefs. A belief arises because somebody says, this is it. Whether it is 10 things written down or 25 things written down or 3 things written down, that's not the point. Something written down. Somebody says, this is it. Nobody listens. Then we say, God said it. Everybody sits up. And still some people don't listen, those in the back benches don't listen. Then we tell, if you don't listen, God will come and burn you out. Then they also listen. So this has been the method of the religion. That is, essentially, you believe something. Let us understand the word belief. When you say, I believe something, what it means is, you don't know what it is, but you assume. That's what belief means. The English word belief literally means something that you do not know. You made a strong assumption about it, that becomes your belief. So essentially, it is ignorance institutionalized.
Sadhguru, pardon me for a brief intervention, I entirely agree with you. But if that ignorance is not universal in the sense that my ignorance is different from the other person's ignorance, my God is different from his, and therefore
Yes, I'll come to that. No two human beings will believe the same thing, okay? You believe one thing, I believe one thing. Now, today we are both friends. Tomorrow, if you… I think this is it because my God said it. If you negate it, initially I'll tell you, please don't do it. If you don't listen, tell me, whom should I protect, you or my God? I will naturally take the side of my God, and we wish to, put you in a different posting up in the heaven. So the moment you believe something that you do not know, you have started a conflict. The conflict might not have erupted, but it'll erupt someday. So that is the reason why I'm saying one should understand the distinction between believing, knowing and seeking. Knowing obviously has not happened, so the only option that you have is to seek. So when you say, I am a religious person, you refer to yourself as a believer. That means you have assumed something and concretized the assumption, and you want to concretize that assumption in 10,000 people around you. When you say, I am on the path of spirituality, you will say, I am a seeker. When can you seek? Only when you have realized you do not know, you can seek. No seeking can be genuine. If you assume something and then seek, you do not know, that's why you seek. If you come here and you do not know, can you fight with somebody? You have no cause to fight with anybody. You have nothing to protect because you do not know. So, spiritual process will remove conflict entirely, not in the society. Essentially, it removes it within you. Because social conflict is just a manifestation of the conflict that's happening in individual human minds. If I am fired up that you are transgressing on my beliefs, I will gather 100 people and then start something on you, okay? But it is what started in my mind which manifests in the society, not otherwise. So essentially, the very root of conflict is taken away. Spiritual process also means this, that from the false identities that you have taken, coming to the reality of who you are. As we already went through this, if you're identified or if you realize you're just a piece of life and this life cannot happen here without being connected with the whole existence, and if this becomes a living experience for you, only if it becomes a living experience for you, you must take the responsibility of other people's lives, not otherwise. So always in this country, in this culture, if somebody has to become a king, first thing is he must take a spiritual step because he needs inclusiveness. If he does not care, if he does not include these people as his, it doesn't matter what his intentions are, what he does will not be good to the people. So this inclusiveness, if it has to come, spiritual process not only has to touch the population, first it must touch the leadership. We were doing a program for a group of very prominent people about 8 years ago. And one person who's a very well-known and very important person in the administration stood up and asked Sadhguru, "That's fine, what about the country?" I said, "See, there are many things you can do, but the most important thing is, some transformation is needed within the leadership. Because a leader means, if you become a leader of the people, every thought that you generate, every emotion that you generate, every action that you perform is going to impact millions of people. It's a tremendous responsibility and a privilege. When you have such a privilege, the first thing that you should do is enhance this, fix this in the way it needs to be fixed. Now, you are going with the idea of you can fix it with morality. But I'm telling you, morals themselves, your moral and somebody else's moral will clash somewhere. As somebody's belief and somebody else's belief will clash, your ethics and somebody's ethics will clash somewhere. I'm saying this not to provoke you, but I would like you provoked. When you have a set of ethics and you think this is it, you are also a kind of religion. I'm the only irreligious person here. Because I have no values, I have no ethics, I have no beliefs. All I know is, if I look at people like this, I do not know which is me and which is not me. I see myself as everything, and that's all I know. This will not clash with anything. This is guaranteed, it will not conflict with anything.
Essentially, Sadhguru, what you're saying is there can only be an approach, not necessarily an answer, and there's no one definite answer.
I said there's one classic answer which will handle everything. Because if one set of beliefs, when they took it, it actually worked for them, do you understand? But as it grew, as the numbers gathered, then conflict erupted. Similarly, one set of morals or ethics, when you take it, initially as an individual, it'll work wonderfully for you. As if you gather huge numbers behind you, people with these ethics will clash with people with some other kind of ethics or no ethics people.
So you cannot really have another set of commandments, you have to think of
Yes.
a uniform framework which everybody can understand and appreciate. Sadhguru, you have made a very passionate plea for spiritualism beyond religion. Something like a pantheistic approach to life rather than belief in a particular God and therefore…
No, spiritual process has always been not a religious process. You need to understand this. This is the only godless country on the planet. This may be shocking for people who believe and every day go to the temple. You need to understand this, we have 33 million gods and goddesses because we understood the technology of God making. We understood God is our making. So if you want, you can make the tree in your garden a god. If you want, you can make a rock into your god. If you want, you can make your mother into your god. If you want, you can make your cow into your god. Anything you want, you can make it into your god. So we understood, all we need is, if we look at life closely enough, there is no piece of creation without the hand of the Creator in it. When I say this, suppose we take an atom. We know how proton, neutron, everything is doing, but we do not know what makes it happen like this. There is some force making all this happen. Now if you as much as eat a banana, this banana becomes a human being over a period of time within yourself. There is an intelligence which is making this happen. This intelligence, which we call as the source of creation, this source of creation is in every piece of creation. If you recognize it, well, an atom could be your god, an ant could be your god, an elephant could be your god, anything. Because we understood this, we went on creating. Now, people say India has too many gods. I feel they don't have enough gods. We had 33 million gods and goddesses when our population was so.
Now you can make it 1 billion.
Yes, since then, because of external invasions and things, they made you feel ashamed of your gods, you stopped being creative. If you had 1.2 billion gods and goddesses, if every one of you actually you have this option, there is something called as Ishta Devata. If you don't like any of the gods that you have, you can create your own. I have my god, you have your god. Will we ever fight? No. Only if my god has a following of 100 people, now we are going to fight. My god is only my god, we are not going to fight. So this is a simple understanding we came to a long time ago. Because all you want is, you want an entity to relate with without any inhibitions. This is a human need, you can't take it away. People want an entity with which they can relate without any inhibition. Whoever may be around you, your family, your friends, still there are inhibitions. You can say something, you can't say something. You want somebody with whom you can be just yourself. This is a fantastic therapy for you and it works wonderfully well. There is no person on the planet whose life is as sweet as the life of a devotee, not a believer, I'm saying a devotee. Because in devotion he finds he's so sweet, his life is beautiful for himself and he will never do anything beyond that. His sweetness will anyway spread. So the important thing that we need to understand here is, we are always thinking the way we are creating things in our mind is more important than the Creator's creation, which is a completely wrong thing, because this intelligence itself comes from Creator's creation. Now, who is the Creator? You think like this only because you are a person, this is your personality. Because you're human, you think one big human being is sitting up there and doing things for you. That is a childish version. But if you created your own God, you know very well you created and still it works, wonderfully works for you. Now the important thing is to make a distinction, a clear distinction between belief systems, which are labeled as religions of the world, and seeking, wanting to know. Modern science has grown the way it's grown only because people were seekers, isn't it? If you turn outward and seek, you get labeled as a scientist. If you understand, if you want to know life, the best thing is to probe the life that you are, you will become a spiritual person. But both are seeking. So, we call this spiritual sciences because you are seeking systematically. You are not assuming anything. This is needed. Because we fight because we've assumed, isn't it? It's our assumptions which are quarreling. The fight is never between good and bad, though people would like to project like that. The fight is always between one man's belief versus another man's belief, religious or otherwise.
Sadhguru, to go back to the practical realm of politics and governance, you have a real challenge in the country today. There's no point skirting over that. You go to any party leader, any legislator in the country, an MLA or MP, or any chief minister or opposition leader, privately they all have the same lament. They say, look, I want to do something good, but without spending crores of rupees to buy the vote, I'm not able to get elected. Without putting up crooks and criminals as candidates in many places, my party does not have a chance of getting those seats. But once I get those people in this manner, I am helpless because then I am caught in a vicious cycle. I am caught in a vicious cycle, I cannot get out of it. Now what do? I know this is a self-created problem. After all, the political process that ought to be the solution has become the problem over a period of time. partly because we centralized power, partly because we gave an illusion to people that a monarch is elected, a king is elected, not a representative to get things done through due process of law. Partly because we have not really ensured even simple delivery of services, a birth certificate, a ration card, without some bakshis or sifarish, nothing happens. So we have a complex mess.
You don't have money, you're not born, just understand.
You're not born, absolutely. One famous cricket star, when he was actually a test cricketer, he told me of a story in Bengaluru. There was a death in the family. He went to the municipal office for a death certificate. And he wanted immediately. They said, no, you can collect it tomorrow by paying 50 rupees. Then he asked the lady at the counter, look, I have to go on a West Indies tour tonight, the test team. He was a very famous test cricketer. I will give you 100 rupees now. Can you give the certificate now? She said, yes. So one thing nice about corruption is it's totally socialist. Cricket star or influential person or a poor person, it applies universally. There is a huge problem.
If you play 250 rupees, you can get it even if the person is not dead.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Add a few more zeros, you can actually kill the person. But Sadhguru, given this context, unless some big changes are initiated, one, trusting our people to take care of their lives and their communities locally, empowering the community so that leadership emerges and they understand responsibility and limits, but with a danda. Some things go wrong, you punish them very firmly, but people start taking responsibility.
Now, you must define the word community.
It could
There's
be
a challenge on that.
a village, a ward, whatever.
That is not community. My religion is my community, my caste is my community, my family, my mama and his sons are my community. My village is not my community, my ward, what are you talking about? I don't know. My community is my blood. So, the definition of community has to change, which is not easy work. Because we have not done that work, these things work best if it is done when the euphoria of nationhood happens.
You're absolutely right, Sadhguru. This is an extremely complex task, we messed up quite a bit. But now we have a challenge in our hands. We cannot give up in despair, obviously, and we cannot wait ad infinitum for a change, because India does not have the luxury of another century or 2 centuries to transform the democracy. We have to make it happen as fast as is humanly possible.
Yes. We have been developing for too long.
Exactly, we've been developing too long. So given that, unless you create a situation in which the kind of people who sit here, who ought to be willing to take responsibility politically in any sane society, they're not willing to because they know it is a losing proposition. It is a thankless proposition, it's a losing proposition. But if you create conditions in which they can take responsibility, and a good person, good in every sense of the term, not only morally but in terms of competence, in terms of delivery, in terms of vision, in terms of leadership, is now shunning public life. If you create an electoral model where you actually make it easy for such people to get elected, then things could change. I will give one illustration, Sadhguru. We all talk about criminals in politics. Every state has some numbers, murderers, this, that. In this state, actually in 1999, we came out with a list of 42 notorious criminals contesting elections at that time in the state. That actually was the beginning of a process which led to a law in 2003. But what's important is not description of these criminals. Why are these criminals in politics in the first place? We are skirting the questions. The first thing is, when there is no normative justice, I'm not talking of the higher justice, and I'm not careful with my words, even the justice in the court of law available to ordinary citizens, the criminal whom we revile has actually become the undeclared judge. He became the savior of the ordinary people. Therefore, he earned the respect and the money of the people. 2, once the criminal has that influence, he wants to be in politics because he can control the police in a system where the police are in the hands of politicians. 3, once in our electoral system, money power, caste power and muscle power together ensure a higher chance of success, the political parties are after you. And 4, In a system where nothing gets done in an ordinary course, danda seems to get at least some things done, and therefore people are trusting a criminal to get at least something done in a wooden and inflexible system. So without going into these issues, merely saying criminals are there, let all politicians say criminals, doesn't really take us far. So my appeal to you is, could we evolve a framework? Could we make at least this class of people recognize what is the complexity of a political process and what are the things, what are the levers we could find to bring about the fastest and most genuine transformation of our polity?
As you articulated kind of defined the problem. I would like to stretch it a little bit before I answer this question. That is, criminals are not entering politics because they want to control the police or this or that. Essentially, whether a policeman or a criminal means both of them carry the danda. That's why the danda goes on, both theirs. Now one serves what all of us have agreed as law. Another serves his own understanding of how the society should be. And whenever those who carry the danda to enforce the law do not wield it effectively enough, in reasonable amounts of time, then naturally people will look to somebody else who has the danda, who will wield it quickly. You get justice quickly. See, this whole thing about criminal is a big word. But today in India, it's become very ambiguous, who is criminal, who is not. As it is, so many people who are respected businessmen are in prison. Tihar jail is full of… they're planning to build a, Marriott hotel in Tihar because so many business people, top-level people are there. It's time they did some modifications. And so many more are going to go. If the judges go with the activism with which they are going, many more will go. Because many of them, to do their basic business every day, have to deal with this kind of people. Otherwise they cannot do their business. So the word criminal is a strong word, and we need to understand this in the Indian context. As I said, our action should be appropriate to the situation we are in. We cannot talk like Switzerland, where if you put it on the notice board, this is the law, everybody will follow it. That's not where we are. We need to be, we need a lathi to keep things going. We are still there, let's understand we are there. Whether we like it or not, that's where we are. So what is the solution? Solution is simple enough, but not so easily enforceable. Now it's very easy to say, all of you vote by your… this thing, whoever the best man. Who is the best man? I don't like any of them. So what do? Lot of youth don't go out and vote, they think that's a solution. No, that's not a solution. Whom do I vote? Okay, the best criminal. Best means what? You don't know. So, now we have come to a place, in Tamil there is a saying, Nallavan venuma, vallavan venuma. That means, do you want a good man or do you want a capable man?
It's not possible to have both at the same time.
I'm not saying it's not possible, but if that is the choice, what is your choice? If you're interested in the nation, you want a capable man. If you're interested in your own morality and ethics and values, you want a good man. Good people who sit in important positions of power, very significant positions of power, and who do not have the capability to make their goodness be manifest in their things, they will do more damage than a criminal. If a criminal heads this country, out-and-out criminal heads this country, probably India will become prosperous, he will rob the world. Right now he's robbing you, but if he becomes the prime minister, maybe he will rob the world. And many prime ministers, presidents and kings and emperors of the past have all been robbers and still are, many of them. They're robbing effectively elsewhere and people are happy.
As you said, Sadhguru, we are moving from the feudal, the medieval
no.
system to a modern system, and we would like both competence and integrity to be together.
You asked for a
And
practical
that's a reasonable
solution.
aspiration.
You asked for a practical solution, not an ethical answer. Now, we must understand the leadership as a whole in the last 200 years there has been a metamorphosis. A few centuries ago, religious leadership was the most powerful leadership. Even if a king was in place, religious leaders controlled him. After some time, his power went away and the military leadership took over. We suffered the dogmatism of religious leadership and came down to the tyranny of the military leadership. Then we have moved on in the last 150 years on this planet to the confoundedness of the democratic leadership. A simple decision that one man can make, 540 people sit together and they can't make a decision in 10,000 years. What the country needs, everybody knows, but they can't take a decision because to make 540 people agree to one idea is going to take a long time. By the time you take a decision, is irrelevant most of the time. So I'm not talking about pessimism, I'm saying this confoundedness is there across the planet and nations and planet is suffering for this. Whether it's ecological loss or many things, human rights and things, you can't take any decision because various interest groups and things keep pulling and pushing. Now one thing is happening, that is now leadership is moving into the hands of economic leaders or the business leaders. In the next 15 to 20 years, you will see economic leadership will become far more important than political leadership. We are heading there, clearly. Even now, it is already very much there. In many countries, it's the businesses which decide what the politicians should do. We have done a different kind of job. We have an economist as a prime minister. The fact is, he's not a politician because he can never get elected. He's never been elected. So we are not following democracy because democracy happens by election. Right now we are running the nation by selection. Because we are trying… we have our own jugaad for everything, Across the planet, this is happening. The power is moving from political leadership to economic leadership. Here, economic leadership has not come to that level. So we have put an economist as a leader who has no political capabilities. In a democratic society, a political leader means if he stands up, 1 million people should stand up with him. Only then he is a political leader. Otherwise he cannot be. So now it is moving into the hands of business. Always we have seen business as vested interest. They have the tag of vested interest hanging around their neck. This is a responsibility, I don't know whether they will stand up to it. In the last 10, 12 years, I'm constantly in dialogue with economic leaders across the planet and also in this country, mainly because I see in the next few years the world will be theirs. But they have always been seen as vested interests because these are people who are operating out of personal ambitions. To transform them from personal ambition to a larger vision is the most significant thing we need to do right now. Because whether you like it or you don't like it, the power will shift from political leadership to economic leadership. If you don't shift it consciously, it will move from economic leadership to criminalization, because a criminal is a businessman. Personal ambition is what is driving him. But he doesn't go by the law, that's all the difference is. And now you see, many business people are also not going by the law, because law is ambiguous and law is enforced ad hoc. It's enforced on me, not enforced on you. Now I think, why should I go by the law? I will also find some other way to do it. This culture is setting in. So if we do not shift this consciously, unconscious haphazard shifting will happen, naturally criminals will become leaders. You should not be surprised. People who have proper criminal records, if they become Prime Minister of this country in the next 20 years, you should not be surprised if we do not do anything about it now.
That's the challenge, Sadhguru. What do we do? That's the precise question I'm asking. Because
What do we do?
I entirely agree with you, because if power goes to businessmen, that's not going to be the best answer either. As you said, they're going to be vested interest there, while they have to be partners
they
in the
have
whole.
been vested interests. About 10, 11 years ago, in the World Economic Forum, I coined this word called inclusive economics. Since then, this word has been bouncing around in many places, even the prime ministers of the nations are talking inclusive economics. If a more inclusive way of approaching economics happens, a businessman is a good leader because the thing about the businessman is he's flexible. He doesn't believe anything. He has no qualms about anything. If the deal is good, he will do it. Even if he has to do a deal with the devil, he will deal with the devil. He has no prejudice. The deal is good, he will do it. I'm saying he is the most pragmatic man in the society, he is the businessman. But right now, he is driven by his personal ambition. To shift him to a larger vision is a challenge, which last 12 years we have been actively working on. With individual people, we have succeeded phenomenally. And in the larger context, this is something very heartening on one level, is today if you meet the businesses of the world across the planet, like never before, there are many business leaders who are thinking how to do business in such a way that it will do some good to the world. It is very important, this, because a business activity means just this. If I make some transaction, it is beneficial to both of us. Only if it is beneficial to both of us, this activity will be sustained. If it's only beneficial for me, it will not go on. Only beneficial for you, it will not go on. Whether it's marriage or marketplace, this is true, isn't it? If it's only beneficial for one person, it is not going to last. Only if the transaction is beneficial for both, it will last. So in that context, the world moving towards business leadership is a good thing, but the business leadership has to mature and evolve, which needs to be worked at. And of all the types of leadership that I have mentioned, religious, military, democratic and business leaders, I have found personally, business leaders are the easiest ones to work with because they are willing to listen to something if it makes sense to them. Religious leaders will not listen to anything because they already got instructions from elsewhere.
But Sadhguru, we need to do something fast because the kind of crisis we're getting into in this country, it's getting deeper. If you see the political parties, with all their imperfections, they held the country together so far, but now even they are breaking apart. They are simply breaking down. For a party to survive, you require ideas and idealism and agenda. You require committed leadership which is trusted, and you require the promise of power. Increasingly, in most of the major political parties of India, all these three are disappearing. Long ago, idealism and agenda have gone. Leadership, for whatever reasons, the respect is increasingly diminished. And as the slightest threat appears to their political survival, suddenly parties are catapulting, they're collapsing. So unless some quick decisions are made by the political people of the country, by the media, by the spiritual gurus, and by the citizenry at large, I'm afraid we're going to have some very tumultuous time.
If you're looking for a solution, you must understand this. Right now, even if it's a political leader, what is it that the people of this nation are expecting him to deliver? An economic answer, isn't it? They're not asking him to teach a philosophy. They're not asking him to give some teaching. They want an economic answer. Yes or no? They want an economic answer. Okay, how can I do my business? Where can I get a job? What can I do? This is the question they're asking. So when this is the question they're asking, the leadership should have the necessary business, capabilities. The leadership in India has no clue what's business. You understand? They are still think they are law enforcers. Yes, they are on one level. Yes, they are policymakers on another level, but they have no clue how to do business. It's very, very important that we strengthen the business leadership and put proper laws. At least first thing, if we cannot, rehaul or overhaul all the laws in the country, at least the economic rules. What are the ways you can do business, what are the ways you cannot do business in this country? These laws must be drawn up immediately, immediately. Every day you postpone, the well-being of the country is being postponed by years and decades. So, if you make this and encourage people, because in 1996 in India, only 3% of the population was employed, 97% was self-employed. So, we are essentially entrepreneurs. 97% of the population survive without jobs. We are great entrepreneurs, but we are only selling chikkadkai, half a kilogram of chikkadkai. This is our enterprise. And we spend a whole day, one person will spend a whole day selling half a kilogram of chikkadkai. But do not underestimate this half a kilogram, because to sell this half a kilogram, he understands where he should stand, what he should say, what is the current politics, what is the latest cinema, he knows everything and he quotes things and he markets his chikkadkai. Yes or no? So I'm saying there is this capability in the country, but we are trying to module now an economic model. For whatever reasons, I'm not going into the philosophy of it, the communistic way of existence, the socialist way of existence has collapsed. As an ideal, it's a fantastic thing. That everybody lives by his need, not by his greed, is a fantastic idea. But it did not work. So now we have chosen a market economy. Once you have market economy, you must understand that greed is good. If people don't have hunger, ambition, market economy will collapse. Our problem right now in this country is, we say this is a market economy. If somebody does well, we'll say, see, he's so greedy. This is not going to work. Somebody wants to gold paint himself and walk on the street. For me personally, it may be vulgar, but he likes to gold paint himself and walk on the street, that's his problem. But that is allowed in a market economy. Do you understand? We try to control these morals, now you kill the ambition. If you kill the ambition, you kill the market. So we must decide, are we going for market economy or are we going for socialist way of living? If we take steps in market, there is no time or no opportunity to look back and say, oh, that would be nice. There's no such thing. Both the systems have their problems. Greed is not the good way to structure a society, but right now the whole world is being structured that way. The only way you can make greed productive is proper economic laws and unbridled opportunity for people to do business. For that, we need a businessman leading the nation.
Sadhguru, in your interactions with the business leaders, have you seen the inclination to accept this responsibility, to take up this challenge, to risk failure and to do whatever it takes?
In a very big way right now in the world.
Well, that's very good news.
Internationally, it is very true.
But in India?
In the country,
because
not
my universe
so much.
now is India at this point of time.
No, that is the thing. Once you're ruled by business, national boundaries become irrelevant. This happened in 2007 or 8. I was at Davos. This is Pakistani breakfast. General Musharraf was speaking. The hall was packed. Everybody wanted to hear what he's going to talk. I also got invited, I went. And he spoke and spoke and spoke. People are looking at, these are all business people, they're looking at, okay, what are your economic policies? Can we do business in your country or no? That's all they want to know. But this man went on saying how he knows how he is a great leader and how his leadership did this and that, and he was giving leadership lessons to everybody. Every one of them is a leader by himself. But he was giving leadership lessons, and the whole time, 2-hour time, he spent 1.5 hours. And then there was no time left, so he said only one question. This was supposed to be an interactive session, but he did all the talking. Then I raised my hand. Because I had already met him previously, he said, okay, you. So I stood up and asked him, see, right now India and Pakistan, both of them, we are actually not developed countries. We like to call ourselves developing because we're developing for too long. Forever if you're developing, you're not a developing country, okay? If you're developing somewhere, you must become developed. I said, this is happening for too long. The reason is, one major reason is, both the nations are spending enormous amount of money on this defense and nonsense. If India and Pakistan had known these issues, both the countries probably would have prospered by now. But somehow we couldn't keep that nonsense down, we fought all these years. Just 3 wars are not the thing. Preparing for the war is a horribly expensive process. I said, see, you don't expect the religious leaders in your country and our country to come to any agreement. It's a waste of time doing all these interfaith meetings and things. Anyway, they will pretend and go home and they will preach their own thing, okay? Two military leaders cannot agree because we're pointing guns at each other, we are trained to shoot. Political leaders cannot agree because that'll make them lose elections. But a business person has no issue. If there is a good deal in Pakistan, every Indian businessman will go and do deals in Pakistan. If there is a bridge to be built, for a $1 million bridge, they're offering $2 million, half of Hyderabad will go there. So I said, see, the first thing is, let's open up the business. If you open up the business, if daily transactions are happening, my people are on that side, your people on this side, my money there, your money here, I wouldn't want to bomb your country, you wouldn't want to bomb my country.
Gladly that's beginning to happen now, this transaction business relationship in India and Pakistan.
Because national borders will go away, that is very important. On the longer run, it is very important national borders get diluted. That is when armies will come down. That is when the potential of fighting on the planet will go down. That is when development will happen indiscriminately, according to capability, not according to national identity, isn't it? So this transaction should happen. And just previous day he was talking about how he's for peace and how he's looking for this and that, looking for support and money, but he forgot all that and he burst out. He said, how can we do business? You know, my dear friend, somebody mentioned name, he died in my arms in the war. I named my son after him because of that. We have spilled blood, we have lost people. How can we do business? We cannot do business. International press was amazed that this man just came out and said, we cannot do business with each other, being the head of a nation. But if we started doing business, don't do any of these… all these parlays which are very expensive, politicians meeting, anyway it's a foregone conclusion, it's not going to go anywhere. Do business, as much business as possible. You will see people will forget who the hell is a Pakistani, who's an Indian.
I think that's very insightful, Sadhguru. I think what you initiated is now bearing fruit because I think India and Pakistan are now willing to do business at last. Sadhguru, before we open to the floor, I limit to a couple of inquiries. We have, as you often said, great technology and vast resources today, better than ever before in any other generation. But as a society, as a country, we seem to be very poor in organization.
Oh, you don't talk about that.
I'll give two specific illustrations to make this point, so that that line of inquiry can be pursued further. Finland, the tiny Scandinavian country, tiny in terms of population at least, it had every single birth and death registered 500 years ago. It's a haven for genetic research today. Even today in India, in any city, let alone small towns, we cannot claim that every birth and death is registered. It doesn't cost money, it's not a technological issue, organization. But a more important example, every year roughly about 200,000 children are born in this country with preventable congenital abnormalities, birth defects that could have been prevented largely because of two reasons. One is a viral disease called rubella. If only every girl child before pregnancy or before marriage is given that vaccination, there's a fully effective vaccine. Thousands of these serious deformities would have been prevented. It's not costly at all. And the second is consanguineous marriages in South India. You know, we have this very sorry tradition of marrying cousins without realizing the consequences in terms of genetic…
We don't want our property to go to somebody else.
I know. But if only we had organization to make people aware, it's not even a question of money. If only efforts are made in that direction, vast amount of good can be done. So how do you promote outside of business? Business is an area where organizations are improving. But outside of business, except Isha Foundation and a few organizations, very few are actually able to organize well to be able to deliver exceptional outcomes. What can be done to really promote specific, well-directed action based on organization?
Somewhere, can I say something? Somewhere in your mind structure and in the minds of many Indians, particularly middle-class Indians, business is still a bad word. This must go. I'm saying even delivering the vaccine can be delivered by a business. It will be delivered much more efficiently, properly, and if they don't deliver it properly, you can ask them. You can demand that you want it because you paid for it or somebody paid for it. Right now, because it's a government agency or it's a social organization, whether it's Isha Foundation or somebody else, because we are delivering it as charity or as service, people cannot demand, why have you not done this? If it was business, they would have asked, why have you not done this? Otherwise we won't do business with you, we'll do business with somebody else. We'll buy the vaccine from somebody, not from you. So, business is not a bad word. Social organizations like ours and so many others have become necessity because one thing is administration is not able to perform the duties that it was supposed to perform, like health, education, nourishment, ecology. This is not my business. You know, like I went somewhere and this big professor from Harvard University comes and says, "Oh, you are that amazing tree planter?" I said, "No, I'm not a tree planter." He said, "No, you planted so many million trees." Yes, I did, but I'm not a tree planter. My work is to make people blossom, not to plant trees. The administration should have planted the trees. They didn't plant, so when I have time, I'm planting. So, planting a tree, building a school, building a hospital is actually not my business. It should not be if the nation is functional. These are things the administration should do if it is that kind of medicine, if there is that kind of a Medicare system. Otherwise, businesses should do. Now, first thing if you say business in health is, you will say they will exploit, they will charge. Do you know how much this hospital is charging, that hospital is charging? It's all true. But now, if 10 hospitals like that came, market, demand and supply would bring it down to reasonable levels. Right now there's only one good one, so they're charging astronomical prices. If 10 like this came up, you would choose where to go, where it's sensible to go, isn't it? And proper laws to see that they don't misuse and exploit this capability. So business is not a bad word. Social organizations can fill in the gap for some time. They can never be a total solution. I'm saying Isha Foundation is not a solution for all the problems of this nation. If 1,000 organizations like this come up, we function very efficiently with absolute dedication, but still I'm saying this is not a solution. This is only a patchwork, this is only a band-aid for a cancer. The problem is so huge. We do little things and people think you're doing great things. I just tell them, what is a great thing? The problem is so big and you do little thing and it's a great thing. Why? Because nothing has been done. Because nothing has been done, the little thing is a great thing, isn't it? However dedicated we are, however capable we are, social organizations are not the ultimate solution for nation's problems. Once we have taken to market economy, we should allow the market and the forces of the market to function, and the market should be guided by appropriate laws so that it doesn't lead to too much exploitation. That is the only way, because we have chosen market economy. We cannot go back to socialistic ways of functioning on one level, market economy on the other level. It'll lead to confusion. Right now, that is what is happening in Indian minds. They're confused. They don't know whether to make profit or to make charity. I'm saying, let the business be structured in such a way, if I do business, naturally everybody must benefit. This is the rule of law. This is the role of law, that law should be structured in such a way, the laws of business should be structured in such a way, if I do business, everybody around should be benefited, not because of my charity, because of the law.
That's wonderful, Sadhguru. That market principles must be applied and competition and choice must be the cornerstones, even in socially productive work of this kind.
I don't trust people's morality. I don't trust people's ethics. I've seen enough of it and I know in how many ways it can be subverted. That's why I'm saying the law must be clear and law must be enforced.
And that's a powerful message, Sadhguru. One last question before we leave it to the floor, Sadhguru. We are all proud of our own culture, tradition, our history, our philosophy. After all, each country is proud of its own past, and we probably have greater claim to some exceptional accomplishments as a society and civilization. But there are two problems that are recurring in the modern context. The first is, even in the minds of people of our background sitting here, otherwise enlightened and liberal, there is this moral neutrality to inequality by birth. While we treat people who don't have an opportunity because of circumstances, because of poverty, with a lot of kindness, with a lot of compassion, we do not realize that those children are entitled to the same opportunity that my child is entitled to. It's simply alien, it appears to me, to our culture, unless a very strong message goes consistently. Unless everybody is allowed to rise, everybody will fall eventually. The second deficit appears to be, more or less as a corollary of this, a trust deficit, an incapacity to recognize that there is a common fate binding all of us. Politicians blaming bureaucrats, bureaucrats blaming judges, judges and politicians and bureaucrats together blaming media, all of them blaming somebody else. This is a blame throwing and treating the other fellow as a nuisance and not being able to look at the bigger whole and our own role in making the bigger things happen seems to be a very special Indian problem. What do you advocate, Sadhguru, to address these two challenges?
See, we need to understand India. The problem is, we are trying to look at India through a Western education window. Right now, all the educated Indians, somewhere there is one window of Western education, rest of it is total chaos. And we like chaos. We are a colorful mess. As long as you're not trying to work with somebody, Indians are fine. Because everybody is a genius by himself. But you can't organize a genius and get results. By themselves they're good. You try to put them together, there's a big problem. So what India is why it is like this is, I already mentioned this in passing. One thing is, India does not have beliefs and India has never had moral code. See, every other nation has strict moral code, people feel guilty about certain things. An Indian can just do just about anything very happily. Do you understand? I've had the misfortune of sometimes closely interacting with some very famously corrupt people right now in the country. When I really looked at them closely, what I saw was, they did not even think they're doing something wrong. So your ideas of morality, ethics, they're shocked that you're saying, you're complaining, after all I become a minister, shouldn't I make some money? What are you talking? I'm saying they're not even… they're surprised that you people are complaining because India is not has never had a moral code, but still people remained in a certain way because there was a spiritual ethos. People told you, everything is your karma, whatever you do, there will be a consequence. And people stirred up certain other dimensions within you. Every generation had people who would stir up this possibility of consciousness within you. We operated out of continuous stirring up of consciousness, never morality. Now we have come to a place where in the last few hundred years or few generations, nobody has come, I won't say nobody, not enough people have come to stir up consciousness. And consciousness has gone low, no morality, we are between the two cultures, we are falling in the gap. We have lost our way of keeping ourselves in check, but we still cannot take on Western way of strict morality. And we are falling in the gap in between, that's where we are. See, right now, it's seriously happening like you said yesterday's election results and everywhere else, whether it's Bengal or UP or Tamil Nadu or wherever else. Gradually in India, there is no party which you can call as national party, all regional parties. As regional parties becoming more and more powerful and they sweep the state and national parties are completely routed, I'm not trying to pitch for them because there is nothing to defend them, okay? But whichever way, whatever they may be, for the long-term interest of the nation, it's very important two or three national parties must become strong. Otherwise, after 25 to 50 years, we will wonder, why are we one nation? Suddenly one chief minister will become prime minister. A chief minister who is chief minister for 10 years and frustrated with his chief ministership wants to become a prime minister. When he sees there is no other way to become a prime minister there, he will become a prime minister here. Yes. And already some serious attempts in this direction have been made in the past in certain states. If we value India as a nation, it's very important that we must strengthen the national parties. How to join these parties? Both are a mess. That is a real problem, what to do. But what we need to understand is, there is people, there are parties and there is administration. In Indian mind, these three things are distinctly separate. This distinction should go. There is no people, party and administration. There is people, people and people. This is what a democracy means. People who are sitting here in this chair, tomorrow could be walking the street campaigning for a party, day after tomorrow they could be in that chair. This is what democracy means, that you are here today, tomorrow you could be there. So this distinction has to go. These are all easier said than done, to remove these distinctions, to make people understand, because how many people can you even talk to in this country? Because you know only 2 languages. Yes? Maybe I know 3 languages, but how many people will you speak? There are 16, 24 languages in the country. Who are you going to speak, who are you going to leave out? So there are these issues, but it is very, very important. However corrupt, however nonsensical, however rubbish it is important to strengthen 2 or 3 national parties, otherwise there will be no India after 50 years, there will be many countries.
Sadhguru, I actually entirely agree with you, and Loksatta and I have been always articulating the need to strengthen national parties. The tragedy is they are their worst enemies. So we do require to transform politics. That's why I was so repeatedly pleading that
I don't
unless
blame
we
you at
find
all.
an answer…
I wouldn't like to join any national party because we know what's happening and the way it's conducted.
So how do
but
we…
that is the reality of our nation.
But unless we transform them, unless… that's the reason why I'm pushing this today, unless the pressure comes from the spiritual gurus, from the civil society, from media, that the need of the hour is not merely replacing one with the other, but actual transformation of the nature of politics and building a framework for the unity of India. I entirely agree with you. So
I'm privately, not publicly,
private.
not announcing to people,
Whatever it…
giving them that privacy. Privately, we are slowly trying to transform many political leaders in the country. We have successfully worked with a few people, others are slowly coming in. But it's still a long process, it's not something that will happen overnight. And India, a country like India cannot be turned around overnight. If we work as a generation of people, maybe we'll leave a little better country for the next generation. That's where we need to look at. The most significant thing right now in the nation is, people have come to a place where they're willing to give up their caste, creed, ideology, everything for economic well-being. This may be described as greed by certain people. I see it as a possibility. There is only one ethos, everybody wants to do economically well. This is an opportunity to transform the nation. When they're economically down, you ask them to leave their religion and come beyond that. You ask them to leave their caste and creed and come beyond that, they will not come, because that net is a security. Belonging to a certain caste, belonging to a certain religion, belonging to a certain community has been their security for centuries, for thousands of years. Suddenly you ask them to come out, they won't come. Only if you throw up a big opportunity and a dream out there, people will crawl out of those nets, risking their life. So economic opportunity is the most important thing right now. Personally, it leaves distaste in my mouth to go on talking and pitching for economic possibilities, because that's not going to transform human life. But right now, if nation has to crawl out of the pit, social, economic and political pit it is in, right now I see the only solution is economic development should happen. It'll come at various costs will be there will be a price to pay for that. But we must pay the price, otherwise we'll stagnate where we are.
Sadhguru, that practical wisdom actually is music to my ears. Unless we have such unrelenting focus on economic growth and rapid economic growth, I entirely agree, both political and social problems will only be exacerbated. I think we should give an opportunity to the floor to raise, I'm sure, far more interesting questions.
How do we find this balance, the balance between this base need and this high need of spirituality? Because I think that we are in the middle, and what we want is an ease in life in this democracy, so that we can all become seekers and concentrate on seeking as opposed to concentrating on surviving. That's my question.
The question is for him, right?
No, it's for you, Sadhguru. The balance is about you. We're all imbalanced people.
Now, I will simplify this. How do I bring a balance between… Right now I am hungry, I am. Right now I am hungry, how to fill this and how to attain to the highest goal, whatever that is, mukti or liberation, or how to fill my belly and how to meditate. How to make these two things happen? You are addressing it as if they're two separate things. Do not address it as two separate things. You are a human being. You are a human being who's come with both the needs. But when you're hungry, if I ask you to meditate, you are not going to meditate. Will you? And I will not ask you to meditate, because I think when a man is hungry, asking him to meditate is vulgar. It's an obscenity. When somebody is hungry, you talk to him about mukti, I think it's obscene. I will not do such a thing. If he's hungry, we must see how first the food should happen. Then only we can talk about another dimension. So do not look at it as two separate things, but physical need is an urgent need. Meditation, you could postpone it to tomorrow. Dinner you must have today, isn't it? So economics is the need right now, because half the population has still not eaten properly yet. You can talk meditation only to those who have eaten well, not to those who have not eaten well. We don't do such things. That is why Isha has a spiritual aspect and a social aspect. I don't like to do the social thing. If the administration had taken care of all the social needs, I would like to do just the spiritual part. But if I do just the spiritual part, I will leave out half the population. So I am doing the social thing with them. So do not separate it. If your stomach becomes full, immediately the other need will naturally come up within you. I don't have to tell you, you meditate. You will start looking, what do I need to fulfill my life? Because this is the nature of a human being. If you came here as some other creature, stomach full, life settled. Once you come as a human being, stomach empty, only one problem. Stomach full, 100 problems. So, once your stomach becomes full, you will seek other things, you don't have to be told. You will seek anyway, then other things will come anyway. That's why we are talking so much about economics right now.
I think there is a hint from Sadhguru that we should wind up because he's hungry. Who is next?
No.
Who is next? Yes, this young man.
In politics, you said you require a business outlook leaders, that perhaps it means like instead of people who share 100 rupees, you want people to make 100 to 1,000 rupees and share 500 rupees. That's what…
No, I'm not talking about sharing. See, he said, politicians have spent some 500 crores something. I said, no, they have invested. So, but the problem is, it is a business, but it's an illegal business. There is no law monitoring it rigidly enough to make it a legal business. Now in the United States of America, right now, Barack Obama and Mitt Romney are going around the country raising millions of dollars for their election. But it's a legal business. If he takes $1 more illegally, he'll go to prison. We just have to do that, isn't it?
Right, Guru. Coming to my question, it's like there's been this bipole elections. I went to the campaign because, motivated…
You must arrive at the question quickly.
Yeah, because…
Not because I am hungry, because so many hands are going up.
No, there has to be a background formed for the question because otherwise it's difficult to understand.
No, we are capable of understanding the context.
The question, if I have to put in a nutshell, then how an intellectual and a person with a business outlook can stand for elections and win?
This culture of economics has still not come. We are in still a culture of charity. We have to bring a culture of economics because you've chosen a market economy. See, this is not a simple decision to make. For the builders of this nation, they chose a socialistic economy because it was more endearing to think in terms of let's share, let's do things better. It's not about you versus me, let us do this, but it did not work. As an idea, it's a great idea, but it's an idea that's failed because humanity is not ready for such a big idea. Right now, we have come to a much grosser idea, okay? Market economy is a gross idea, very crass way of existence, but it's working better than the very refined idea. I'm interested in making it work because ideals on an empty stomach means nothing. I know 400 million people in this country have not eaten one good meal in the last 10 days, probably. So when this is our condition, ideals are a taboo. I'm saying this to him. Ideals are a taboo. Nobody can have the luxury of having ideals. We just have to do what's needed. After everybody has eaten, then we can talk what is our ideal, what is our philosophy, what is our ethic. First people have to eat because eating cannot be postponed to tomorrow. Philosophy can be postponed to tomorrow, meditation can be postponed to tomorrow, eating cannot be postponed to tomorrow, it has to happen now, isn't it? So for this, once we have chosen our economic model is market economy, please strengthen the market and nothing else but the market. People tell me, what is this? You say you're a spiritual leader, but you're charging for this. I said, I will charge. Somebody who comes who cannot pay, I will do something else. But I want you to understand, if you want something delivered, it costs. Whether you pay for it or somebody else pays for it, it costs. You've gotten used to somebody else paying for it, that is why you don't know how to make use of anything that's offered to you. If you were paying for it, you would make use of it well, isn't it? Yes or no? Right now, rice is free, dal is free, television is free, gas is free. You think you will destroy the work culture of this nation completely. In Tamil Nadu today, so many things are free for essentially for election reasons and populistic democracy that we are doing right now. Yes, when somebody doesn't have anything, you give him something, it's great. But instead of giving something, even if it causes suffering, if you create opportunities where everybody could make money and have the necessary power to buy it, it would be better. Because today, this started from Andhra Pradesh, that's why I'm telling you. Rice came at 1 rupee. A 10 rupee rice, if you give it at 1 rupee, who is paying the 9 rupees? Who's asking this question? I'm saying you have chosen a market economy, you cannot do this. It may sound cruel, but there are poor people. The first thing is you are enjoying poverty, this is the biggest problem. Religious people enjoy poverty because they want somebody to serve and go to heaven. Now, businessman does not enjoy poverty, he wants everybody to have purchasing power because otherwise he cannot run his business.
I think three powerful messages are coming from you, Swamiji, today. The first order of priority is rule of law, enforcement of rules and laws and public order. The second order of priority is unity of India. Third is economic growth at any cost. I think that's the take-home
Right
message
now,
today.
till everybody eats economic growth at any cost.
Absolutely.
After that, we can control the costs.
I am proud to say I voted for Lok Satta. Before I pose this question, I wanted to say this. I don't know there is any other party in the country like this, so I am very happy for that. My question is, like this, like me, there are a lot of people in this state. First, I am trying to talk about my state, in this state. But why, what the system is hindering? Why we are not able to win more seats? Right now, we just have one legislative. So why can't we have JP as the chief minister or anybody like JP being chief minister? So what is stopping us? So what's Sadhguru's message to the people here? Because everybody is here, they wanted to do something for the society. But I am sure, like me, I am not doing anything. I just think about it. I do nothing. So like me, I guess there are 50% of the people here. So what the message we should get and how we get that education and what we have to do. We are ready to do anything. I am happy the way India is progressing, the media, the RTI, everything is very good. So the question is, the simple finishing thing, we have to get that. So what is the message from you so that we all go to streets and do something for the country? Thank you.
Sadhguru, before you intervene…
No, it's you who has to answer.
No, he wanted an answer from you. Answers are from you, questions are from us. This is an often asked question, it's not about this party or that ethical politics is not sustainable in India. That what we all desire or we claim to desire is not winnable in India is a proven proposition. I can now say with some degree of confidence across the country. The challenge is how to reverse that. That's the anguish of that young man. Sadhguru, you already mentioned the answer, you gave the answer earlier. We all forget the initial conditions of our democracy because we take the normative democratic institutions and the constitution, we think it should operate the way it operates in other countries after a certain degree of maturity. We have not created the initial conditions, and Sadhguru is repeatedly emphasizing that. Even today, the voters have no notion that they are electing a representative. They think they're electing a monarch, and once elected, he somehow will deliver. We don't care how. No rules, no laws, no procedure, get it done somehow or other. And that's not merely the failing of the poor people. It is the failing of our class, Sadhguru. It is the failing of the middle classes, it's the failing of the educated. That's the general perception. The second is, Sadhguru, we created an impossible situation where nothing happens without somebody's intervention. And there is perpetual dissatisfaction because even if the elected person wants to deliver, he cannot fulfill the expectations. And therefore, money has become the currency of vote getting. And now in the competition to get the votes, in our kind of electoral system, where one vote more means you win, one vote less means you lose. Look at Tamil Nadu, DMK, ADMK, how they alternate so dramatically. There is a desperation and a competitive pressure to buy the votes. And that's why today you see in some constituencies, a candidate spending 20 to 30 crores in an assembly election. And that's the reason why I have been arguing for…
You're not getting it. Investing.
Okay. Yes, Sadhguru, you're right. Investing, as a business proposition.
He is not throwing it away, he is investing.
Absolutely, absolutely. A straightforward business proposition in anticipation of multiple returns. There's no question about it. There are two things, and that's the reason why I was urging Sadhguru to take up this issue. One is we have to bring what is the definition of the community is a challenge, but whatever it means, localize power so that citizens are empowered and they understand the limitations of power. Today, because they have no power, they have no responsibility either. Localize power and make them masters of their own resources, but hold a danda so that things don't go beyond a point. And the second is a bigger thing at the national level. Unless we push the political parties, the big national parties, Sadhguru, in the large states of India, UP, Bihar, Bengal, now Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Tamil Nadu, the 6 largest states of India, the 2 grand national parties of this country are more or less decimated. Andhra Pradesh, now it's pretty close to that. The other party was never there. In Maharashtra, both are playing second fiddle. Elsewhere, they are not a factor, which is a unique feature. We are thinking it's normal, it's absolutely unnatural. These parties, once they fall below a certain threshold, they're disappearing in state after state. With the recent fragmentation, this will only get worse. Now is the time for us to make them realize that there's a different way of electing our representatives, where this kind of money pressure is not there. One possibility is, with certain checks and balances, proportionality-based system. Another, at least at the state level, is directly electing the leader. There are models, but we have to now build a consensus and make them realize. Meanwhile, no matter how many hardships we have, once the goal is clear, we have to keep on fighting. I don't see a short-term alternative unless the Sadhguru and many others, they use all their formidable spiritual and temporal influence and authority to move the country in the direction that we all desire. Sadhguru.
In that effort, last 4 years I've been striving to put all the spiritual leaders on one platform. This is called the Confederation.
It's even tougher than NGO leaders, I thought, getting them together and
Confederation of indigenous spiritual movements. We're calling it as Guru Sangamam, putting all the gurus together. I don't want to talk to you about my experience, okay? But we have managed for the first time this year, in the month of April, 123 gurus, prominent ones, we all met. The last 4 years, I've been trying to educate them. We can simply meet without an agenda. There is no need. What is the agenda? What shall we do? Shall we take Padayatra? Shall we fast? Shall we eat? This is the question. I said, no, we will just be together, maybe share a lunch, just be together. Just because each one of you, each one of us have millions of people. Just coming together is a major event. Let's come together, the power of being together, you're not understanding. So we are doing that, but that is still a long way to become a force by itself, as a guiding force, because each one of them will tend to take or jump to some party or the other. I'm trying to keep them away from any party. Let it just be a few things that needs to happen in the nation rather than pitching this party or that party, because once again the same thing will happen. But for you, a man of your integrity, you must jump into a party which you think is of a lesser evil, but evil. Whichever is a lesser evil, you must jump into that, because this young man, he feels proud, I have voted for Lok Satta. But his pride is just empty pride, which will go waste, which will not build a nation. Your integrity, your ethic, your moral, your intentions, your intellect, wanting to do something, all this will go waste unless you have the legs and the hands to do it. It should not go waste. It should not go waste, because I want you to understand this. In Indian minds, especially in the Indian mind and very much in the American mind, people have put these capsules, okay, this is BJP, this is Congress, this is political, this is non-political, this is administration. There is no such thing in a democracy. Democracy is a continuous metamorphosis. The man who is a nobody, tomorrow morning he can become be sitting in the parliament. This is the possibility and this is the beauty of democracy. You will destroy the beauty of that by getting identified with something or the other. And you will destroy the power of that by getting identified. So, if you have integrity, if you have capability, if you have competence which can make a difference for the people of this country, it's most important you get into a place where you will be most effective. Not just enjoy this satisfaction, I voted for integrity. No, you voted for integrity but against India. You vote for India. You don't vote for integrity, you don't vote for values, you don't vote for morality, you vote for India. What's good for this country, that is what you vote for.
Sadhguru, I agree with the broader point that all of us are political. Politics is not a dirty thing, and I'm glad that you're making that point as a spiritual leader. Unless we recognize that we're all in politics, you like it or not, in some form or the other, doesn't mean that you contest, doesn't mean that you're a member of a political party, doesn't mean that you aspire for power, but you actually aspire change.
You must aspire for power. Because if you don't aspire for power, I understand that you have no intention of doing anything for this country.
Oh, that I agree. That's even more music to my ears. But I'm now trying to push them up to a point.
Why I'm speaking like this is, in Indian minds, particularly middle-class minds, people who can read newspapers and watch televisions, in these people's minds, business is a bad word, power is a bad word. No, these are not bad words. These have gotten into bad hands, that is the problem. These are good things.
That's a terrific message, Sadhguru. Who has the microphone?
My problem is, I have a longing to do something, but all my energy and my time is expended to satisfy my definition of my personal and my family well-being. How do I break my vicious cycle and seeking a solution? Thank you.
Sadhguru, you are the best person to answer.
This is a satsang question, this is not a… As Jayaprakash already said, your well-being is not independent of the social well-being. Your well-being is not independent of the national well-being. Your well-being is not independent of the global well-being. If you understand this, you will operate more sensibly.
I'm delighted, Sadhguru. If I may just add, we should do something beyond what appears to be immediately necessary for ourselves, not because we are very charitable or moral, but because the mosquito in the neighborhood, which has bitten an urchin there, will enter your home no matter how wealthy you are, no matter how successful you are.
They've messed up their house, they've completely meshed their house.
But you still have to open the door, you can't imprison yourself forever. And it'll bite you and transmit the dengue virus to your child, because mosquitoes are truly socialist. Sadhguru is talking about how terrible damage socialism has done to us, but mosquitoes are truly socialist. They do not respect rank or tradition or power. We need it for ourselves, not because of a higher goal. I think that's the best message.
I can tell you a way where mosquitoes will not be interested in you. Really. If you take off salt from your diet completely, mosquitoes will not be interested in biting you.
Many may believe that that's a worse life than having mosquitoes bite you. Sadhguru. Yes. Who has the microphone?
Why don't you sit with the financial minister or prime minister and ask for some amount of money to locate the right education schools like Isha, or whatever it may be, to educate the right people, the education to the people. Why don't you sit with the Prime Minister to locate the right schools all over the India? So because you are saying this is really need, the economy or political, whatever it may be. If you are right, if your experience is right, why don't you do that? This is my question.
You're asking Sadhguru?
Yes, Sadhguru.
So for your information, if you do not already know, there is nothing much the Prime Minister can do right now.
Whoever can do,
And
Sadhguru.
anyway, whoever can do, why don't we talk to them? As a part of this, almost 15 years ago, I went, because our work was in rural India, I went to meet the rural development minister in the center. He was a very wonderful man. I've found a lot of politicians on a personal level, they're wonderful people, but they've become victims of their own making and situation also. So he was very wonderful, he took me into the… we met him in the parliament building, he took me into this rural development ministry office. Then he told me, so enthusiastically, he told me all the schemes that they have. I sat there for 3 days looking at all the schemes that were relevant to make a difference in rural India. These are extremely well thought out schemes. Whoever made these things thought through everything, made fantastic plans. You must have access to this as an IAS officer at one time. I was surprised that somebody has been doing phenomenal work. They've done great work. And then after looking at all this, again I went and sat with the minister, this is fantastic, when is this going to happen? He said, last year we had 14,000 crores left unused because nobody is coming forward to do this. Fantastic schemes, there is a budget. You can't ask for anything more. We know what's the solution, we have worked out the solution in entire detail and there is budget, but nobody is there to do it. This is the country you're living in. Even if the Prime Minister has the intention, he cannot do much right now because there is a whole system. So instead of going on trying to revive a system which is cancer-ridden, to deliver goods to the people. I was on dais with some local ministers in Tamil Nadu, and somebody gave me information. I said, out of every rupee that is spent in the government schemes, only 12 paisa reaches the project. On the way, this much goes away. The minister who's sitting next to me said, Sadhguru, no, not 12 paisa, it's only 4 paisa. I said, well, you must be in the know. And I corrected myself, no, not 12 paisa, only 4 paisa out of a rupee is reaching the project. 96 paisa gets lost somewhere on the way. If 4 paisa got lost, we can say, okay, let's go on, let's revive the system and make it happen. If only 4 paisa is being delivered, that is not even a system, isn't it? Even if you throw it in the air, 4 paisa will fall in your pocket. You don't need a system for this. If only 4% is reaching it, you cannot call it a system. That is why I'm going on talking business is because businesses can deliver. When we say business, we are talking about a completely new system. And right now, the whole country and the world is fired up to be economically successful. This is the right time to change the things. As many things as possible, as many services as possible, including giving birth certificate, give it to private agencies, okay? Put stringent laws. If they subvert, something else will happen. You will see, they will come looking where a baby is born and give birth certificate. Yes or no? They will come looking and give it. If there are 10 agencies in this town, there will be a competition, they will be looking, when will you have birth in your house? The moment you're pregnant, they will already book you up. Yes or no? So, I'm talking about changing the entire system because there is a point till which you can repair something. You bought your Maruti car in 2000, it's 12 years, you've used it extensively, but still you can repair. You bought your Ambassador car in 1950, it is better either you buy a bicycle or walk, or if you can afford, buy a new car. You can't go on fixing it because fixing it becomes more expensive than putting up a new system. This system that we're talking about, the economic module which we have already chosen, market economy, doesn't cost to establish the system. There is no cost to the establishment. You just have to make the laws and leave it to the people. Right from there, from that village itself, answers will come. Right now, everybody is looking to Delhi for answers, schemes and schemes. They got all the answers which can't be delivered.
Sadhguru, I think we'll take the last two questions so that…
We understood that there should be an economist or a businessman should be a leader, right? That is what we are trying to understand here. Now, my question is…
No, I'm not only talking about a businessman becoming a leader. I'm talking about business moving into the leadership. There's a difference between the two.
For example, you said, Guruji, you said that any businessman, he won't have prejudice or he might not have any morals or… I don't know. What I think is, any businessman will definitely have his own ethics and morals, he would be running his own business.
No. I'm telling, I do not trust anybody's ethics and morals. Nation doesn't have the patience to check your ethics and morals. We need laws which are enforceable, 100% enforceable. This is the problem, this is a serious Indian problem, what you're saying. This is the problem. We go on talking about morality, we go on talking about charity, sharing. Leave this, it's not worked. That is socialism, it's not worked. Isn't it? It worked only when there was strong bonding in communities. Among their own castes, among their own creeds, they supported each other, they shared and they did things. That bonding is gone. Now that system will not work.
Sadhguru, his question is, for everybody's hearing, can 19th century politics and 21st century economy coexist unless one of them being compromised?
It is very wrong to think we are doing 19th century politics. We are doing 20th century politics. You are just having a taste of 21st century politics and it's leaving a distaste in our mouths. So this is 21st century politics. Never before anybody had ever imagined for an assembly seat, somebody is going to spend 25 crores or 50 crores is an unimaginable thing even 10 years ago. So it is purely 21st century politics, not 19th century politics.
The question is, what are your views on Anna Hazare? Sadhguru, he asked you, I'll certainly give my views if they ask me, but Sadhguru, you must respond.
My interest is not Anna Hazare, my interest is nation. I am not interested in Anna Hazare, I am not interested in Indira Gandhi, I am not interested in Narendra Modi, I am interested in this country. Country means people. So, I went to Hazare's meeting when he was fasting and I also spoke there and supported them in so many ways. I never see Anna Hazare as a solution. I don't. But it is very significant that somebody is playing that role of bringing that awareness, firing up the whole nation towards a cause. There is no question of the significance of his role, but at the same time we should not overplay this role. Because this Jan Lokpal, whatever we're talking about, you can pick 100 holes in it. You know, you want corruption to go, you want people's awareness to come to it, that's perfect, no question. But now, if you bring a law which supersedes every other law, you will have big problems. And how will you populate these positions which will enforce these laws? If already all the criminal procedures codes that you have is being enforced by people who are corrupt and misusing it in 1,000 different ways, how do you know tomorrow the Lokpal, where do you import them from, I'm asking? Once again, everybody will try to get into Lokpal now. Everybody is trying to get into the parliament, everybody is trying to get into the, whatever the system. Now once you see this is the power, if he's saying in Andhra Pradesh 42 elected representatives, is it? Or people who stood for election, who are criminals, or they got elected?
Most of them were elected or…
Okay. So 42 people in one assembly are people with established crime behind them. Tomorrow, after 10 years, they will all understand Lokpal is the place to be, parliament is not the place to be, and they will all enter that. And with such sweeping powers, it'll become a very dangerous force. But I don't believe what he is doing is right, but it is appropriate. Right now it is needed. Right now we need to shake up people and tell them, if you don't do this, we're going to hang you. Somebody needs to do this. And he is doing that, hats off to him, he's managed to somehow. But it's a limited role. He and people around him must understand, it's a limited role. If you stretch it beyond that, that will become the problem. We have reached a time in our nation where the question is not about who is corrupt. The question is about who is not corrupt, unfortunately. If the question was who is corrupt, it would be easy to fix it. The question is who is not corrupt. One Jayaprakash Narayan is a shining example. It is fortunate that we are sitting with him here, but it's unfortunate, it's very unfortunate that somebody who is not corrupt is so important for us, because millions of them should have been not corrupt. But now we've brought this nation in 65 years. 65 years ago, people were willing to walk on the street and throw their lives for this nation. Today we've brought this to a point where a man who is not corrupt is a celebrity. We have to change this. We have to make Jayaprakash Narayan an ordinary citizen of this nation.
Absolutely, Sadhguru. What is the minimum requirement has now become the maximum qualification, unfortunately. You're absolutely right. Sadhguru, I think it's a wonderful blend of spiritualism with pragmatism. It's rare to find a spiritual leader give us such absolutely compelling
I'm trying to
logic.
bring him down, he's trying to praise me.
Such compelling arguments and response to real challenges of life. Thank you, Sadhguru, for that reality check.
Thank you very
We are
much.
deeply grateful to you for this interaction.
Wonderful.